Hello everyone, Luke the Apostate here again, and I'm going to try to answer a question that I saw a Christian ask on the internet recently. And the question the Christian had was, why do atheists list Christian atrocities? Now, there's sort of two parts for this that I want to start with for context. And the first thing is, Christians will sometimes list atheist atrocities, Stalin, Mao, Hitler, that sort of thing. They will mention, necessarily atheistic communist governments and the crimes against humanity that they committed, and then say those atheists did that. Atheism is morally bankrupt. You can't get to that evil. And here's the important point: you can't get to that a level of evil unless you abandon God. The argument is flawed, I think, for reasons that should be obvious. For example, Hitler was also a German and painted in watercolors. Stalin had a mustache. Just because someone has one element doesn't mean that that element is what caused it, or that everyone else that shares that element, is as bad as that person. It certainly is. It doesn't mean that it's not connected, but you can't just say, well, these people had this particular belief and this idea in their head and they did bad things, and therefore that idea is bad. You have to show a causal relationship. So, and the important thing is, when a Christian makes that argument, when a Christian says atheists cause war crimes, basically, crimes against humanity, the Christian is making a positive claim, basically. The Christian is making an argument. Is putting forward an argument that because good actions are from God and the definition of morality is from God, then without God you get immoral actions. That's generally, I think, why Christians are sort of saying that. Which is why when they hear Christian atrocities being listed, they, I think, given their context, reasonably assume that the atheist is attacking Christianity and asserting that Christianity is evil. But this brings us to the second part of context. The Christian asserts there is a God. An atheist might respond, I know that there isn't a God, but an atheist in general, the most broad definition of atheist is simply someone who doesn't agree that there is a God. So it's the difference between making a claim and not accepting a claim, right? So you've got a jar full of gumballs, and one person says the number of gumballs is even, and the other person says, I don't know if it's even or not. I'm not making a decision, I just don't. I'm an evenist. In the same way, an atheist can be merely unconvinced, not necessarily actively in opposition to the idea, but unconvinced. So when an atheist lists Christian atrocities, they typically, I hope, that they're doing so in response to the Christian claim that Christians are better people. Now, I did a video on this, let's put it here. A Christian generally doesn't think that they have more value as a human being than an atheist, for example. Christians will assert that because they are sanctified, they are more prone to charitable acts and love and this sort of thing. But when a Christian starts listing atheist atrocities to prove that true morality comes from God, what they're saying is a Christian is more moral, behaves better, is protected from doing evil by God in a way that an atheist isn't. When an atheist lists Christian atrocities, they're not attempting to prove that Christians are evil. What they are doing is responding to the claims that Christians don't commit evil, or don't commit as bad as evil as atheists do, or are in some way better. it's kind of like the free will argument. You see, a Christian cares very much about free will because he believes that there's, a God out there deciding, pushing Christians into doing good things, and some Christians believe that there's a God out there who actually pushes people into Christianity, and suddenly if there's a God out there who is interfering, if there's a God out there who's interfering in the workings of your mind, the idea of that God also holding you responsible for actions becomes very worrying. And so free will becomes this great, tremendous issue for a Christian. For an atheist, I don't care. There's no God to determine my actions. I am as much or as little a deterministic meat robot as chemistry makes me. Perhaps quantum physics guarantees me some sort of free will, but free will as a concept for an atheist is much less important philosophically than it is for a Christian. Of course there's value to it for the justice system, for example, but in moral or philosophical terms, an atheist doesn't really care in the same way or for the same reasons that a Christian does. In the same way, when we're talking about atrocities, that atheists are more evil is something that Christians who believe in the doctrine of sanctification have to sort of care about. Certainly a lot more than atheists do. So when an atheist lists Christian atrocities, what they are trying to do is not prove that Christians are bad. They are trying to contest by raising counterexamples the Christian assertion that Christianity saves, that God saves, that there is a predictable improvement in behavior following conversion to Christianity. Because an atheist doesn't think that that's really all that likely. And so if a Christian says, well, what about the Troubles? And what about, if we're talking about religion in general, suicide bombing? Or if we're talking about Christianity in Ireland, what about suicide bombing? Or what about, pedophilia in the Catholic Church? Or what about... And of course, a Christian, because their arguments are to prove that atheists are evil, and I'm not saying that any Christian that hears this argument is immediately, in the habit of trying to prove atheists are evil. Many of them are just trying to get along, and I'm not accusing Christians of being jerks. But many Christians who hear, what about the pedophilic priests, they will hear it as an attack. And it's meant as an attack on their position and their assertions, but many Christians, of course, or are talking about sexual abuse by pastors, or financial abuse by pastors, or fraud by pastors. Many Christians will feel that the point is being made that they are bad people. And at least I, as an atheist, am not trying to prove that. I'm simply saying, look, Christianity makes a testable assertion. They make a prediction. They make a statistically judgeable statement. Christianity says Christians should behave better. So, if we look at the universe, what do we see? The Christian model predicts better Christian behavior. The statistical studies say stuff like divorce rates are the same, domestic abuse rates are the same, maybe higher. Nations with a secular versus religious trend seem to be, the atheist nations seem to be happier and more peaceful and have better social health. And the atheist isn't saying that to prove that Christians are bad. They might be saying atheism seems to be better for societies, but they are definitely saying that Christianity's prediction has proven false. Yes, hello, Kat. They're saying Christianity's prediction has proven false. Not that Christians are bad, but that Christianity says, hey, we're better people. In a remarkable way, to refer to the Bible, we're salt and light, and we should put our light up on a hill so everyone can see it. That's referring to good actions by Christians, by the superior moral behavior of Christians. That's in the Bible, and that's in a lot of sermons on Sunday. And the atheist responds to that by saying, yeah, except you're not really, are you? You're just as bad as everyone else. So that's going to tie into another video, I think it'll be the next one, about the Christian assumptions about needing to be saved and how it ties in with the idea that people are bad. Not just non-Christians, that all people are bad. And why atheists sometimes get a little heated about that. So I hope this helps Christians to understand that an atheist response like listing atrocities is not always meant as a personal attack. It's hopefully not even meant as an attack on their deeply held beliefs, except that if the Christian makes a prediction, the atheist is simply trying to point out that that prediction fails. And I hope for atheists that you will be able to understand the sort of instinctive gut reaction that Christians have and state your case with kindness, maybe with a little warning that you're not meaning to say that they're bad people, but they're making a prediction and that prediction doesn't seem to be holding true. And that you can treat each other with kindness and speak to each other with clear language and mutual respect, if not agreement. This has been Luke the Apostate.